Do not mourn me, mother. It was a fair exchange. I may have lost an eye, but I gained a dragon.
Everyone treats that as the coldest boast in the show. The one-eyed prince, shrugging off a mutilation because he came out ahead. It isn't a boast, it's damage control. Because look at what's happening in that room. His mother has just held a blade to a child's face, screaming for justice on his behalf. His father refused to give it. And Aemond, the one who's actually bleeding, says the thing that will make her stop. That's not a boy celebrating a dragon. That's a boy cleaning up after his parents. And that one line is the whole man. Because the most dangerous lie a person ever tells isn't the one they tell the world. It's the one they tell to survive the room they're standing in. You say it once to stop your mother crying, and then you spend 10 years becoming it. Aemond Targaryen is not a monster. He's a boy who discovered that if you look terrifying enough, nobody ever asks whether you're afraid. And everything he does after that night, the dragon, the discipline, the war, is him defending that discovery until it kills him. Of course I'll get to Vhagar and Rook's Rest and what happens above that lake. But first, we need some context. Because you cannot understand what Aemond became until you understand what he was before anyone was afraid of him. And here's my promise to you right now. By the end of this video, I'll show you 2 deaths. One he never meant to cause, and claimed anyway. One he absolutely meant to cause, and denied to the end. The distance between those 2 lies is the entire man. Before the eye patch, before Vhagar, before any of it, Aemond was the joke. Second son of the King of the Seven Kingdoms, and the only Targaryen prince his age without a dragon. His sister has one. His brother has one. His nephews have them. He has a pig, because Aegon, Lucerys, and Lucerys tied wings to one and told him they'd found him a dragon. And he ran down there believing it. Sit with the cruelty of that. They didn't just mock him. They gave him hope first, then took it back in front of everyone. And afterwards he goes to his mother, and Alicent tells him what mothers tell children. One day you'll have a dragon of your own. And behind her, holding an insect, his sister mutters the only true thing anyone says to him for years.
You'll have to close an eye.
Nobody hears it. Nobody ever hears Helaena. Alicent has just made him a promise, and Helaena has quietly attached the price to it. So he takes it. Alone, at night, a boy climbs onto the largest living creature in the world because being eaten seemed better than being laughed at one more time. And it works. And then the knife. Now here's the part everyone skips, because they remember the blood and forget the aftermath. His face is opened up. He's a child. And what does his father want to know? Not whether his son is all right. Not who cut him. He wants to know who told him Rhaenyra's children are bastards.
Who spoke these lies to you?
Viserys stands in that hall with a maimed boy in front of him and opens an investigation into a rumor. The wound is an inconvenience. The rumor is the emergency. And Alicent screams for him. She really does. But listen to who she's screaming at.
And now you take my son's eye, and to even that you feel entitled.
At Rhaenyra, not to Aemond. Every word spoken about that eye is spoken to somebody else. He is the subject of the argument and a participant in none of it. He's evidence. He didn't lose an eye that night. He lost the right to be hurt. And then he does the thing that breaks me every time. Afterwards, it's Alicent who's destroyed. Alicent who needs comforting. And the bleeding child sits with his mother and tells her not to mourn him. So a 9-year-old learns the rule that governs the rest of his life. Your pain is not an emergency. Nobody is coming. Handle it yourself, and make sure it never shows. And a boy who learns that doesn't grow up. He builds. And what he builds next is the largest thing in the world, for a reason nobody in that hall would have guessed. If that just turned the coldest line in the show into the saddest one, if you're already reaching to rewatch that hall scene with different eyes, That's the like button earning itself. Go and smash it with whatever you've got. Dragonfire, Valyrian steel, a stolen dagger in the dark, whatever's nearest. Hi, I'm Nick. You're watching Cynic Colts. And we're just getting started. Here's where most analysis goes wrong. People treat Vhagar as Aemond's reward, the prize at the end of the bullying arc. Vhagar isn't a prize. She's a wall. Because look at what he actually chose. Not the fastest dragon, not the youngest best matched dragon, the biggest one, the oldest one, the one that ends every argument on sight. A boy whose entire problem was that nobody took him seriously picked the one animal alive that makes being taken seriously non-negotiable. That's not ambition. That's a boy building something so large nobody can get close enough to laugh again. And once you see it as armor, you see it everywhere. Aegon drinks. Aemond trains. Aegon collects vices. Aemond collects competencies. Swordsmanship, history, strategy, High Valyrian. Nobody works like that because they feel secure. People work like that because being caught unprepared once was enough. And watch how he spins it. In the small council, in front of everyone, he switches languages on his own king. Ewan Mitchell pointed out that switching languages actually lets Aegon save face. Only the two of them understand it. A public shaming, built so the public can't see it. He doesn't need the court to know Aegon is smaller. He needs Aegon to know. That's not politics. That's a debt from a pigpen. But armor costs. And there's exactly one place in the world where he takes it off. And it isn't with his family. It's a brothel on the Street of Silk. He's been going since he was 13. And he isn't there for what you think. Watch him with Sylvie. He's not commanding, not performing, not the Prince Regent. He curls up. He lets an older woman hold him, and he pays her for it. The most feared man in Westeros buys the feeling of being cared for, because it's the only version in his life that can't be withdrawn. I've got to pause here, because Mitchell was asked directly what drives Aemond. Out of everything he could have said, he said this. He loves his mum. He wants his mum. The scariest man on the board, and the actor playing him says the engine is homesickness. And then Aegon walks in. Drunk, delighted, and he finds his terrifying younger brother in the one posture that proves the armor is fake. And he tells the room, mocking that in all these years, Aemond has never wanted anyone else. That's not a joke about sex. That's a joke about need. Remember it. In about 5 minutes, that laugh burns a king alive. And if you want to know how visible the wound is to anyone standing close, Alicent says it out loud, not subtext. She looks at her son, mid-power grab, and asks him this.
Have the indignities of your childhood not yet sufficiently been avenged?
And he can't answer it. He dismisses her from the council instead and thanks her on behalf of the crown, like a clerk closing a file. That's the tell. He'll take a blade to the face without flinching, but he cannot survive one honest sentence from his mother. Which brings us to the 9 seconds that started a war, and to the confession he makes about them, in a room where nobody was supposed to be listening. Storm's End. Everyone knows this scene. The one-eyed prince corners his nephew, demands payment, murders a child in the sky. But what if I told you the most important sound in the whole sequence isn't a threat? It's a scream.
Give me your eye, or I will take it, bastard!
He's cruel here. Genuinely ugly cruel. I'm not softening that. He wants the eye. He wants to hand it to his mother. And then Boros throws them both out, Luke runs, and up above the storm, everything Aemond believes about himself falls apart in about 9 seconds. No. He says no. The most feared dragon rider in the world, screaming at his own dragon, and the dragon does not care. Arax throws fire first. Vhagar answers. And the oldest war beast alive decides she's finished taking orders from a teenager. And the show told you this would happen in its first hour.
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They're a power man should never have trifled with.
He says it quietly, to a child, about his family's greatest strength. 9 episodes later, his son proves it, and the realm burns for a generation. The director of that finale, Greg Yaitanes, put it plainly. Aemond didn't set out to kill Luke. Freeze on Mitchell's face in the seconds after. That isn't satisfaction. That's a boy watching his own life detonate. So here's the crisis. Aemond built an entire identity on one foundation. Total control. And he's just lost a dragon in front of the whole realm. Admit that, and the armor is empty. He's still the boy in the pig pen, and everything he built is theater. Say nothing. Let them call him Kinslayer, and the world believes he meant it. He chooses the monster. Because being feared is survivable. Being pitied is not. I know how that sounds. So here's the receipt. Season 2, The Brothel. No court, no council, no audience. Just Aemond and the one person he can't lose face in front of, because she was never impressed to begin with.
I do regret that business with Luke. I lost my temper that day. I am sorry for it.
There it is. In public, the kinslayer who collected a debt in blood. In private, to a woman he pays, he calls it losing his temper, and apologizes for it. And Sylvie, who has no title to lose and no reason to flatter him, gives him the truest line anyone gives him in 2 seasons.
I would remind you only that when princes lose their temper, it is often others who suffer. The small folk, like me.
A brothel madam is the only person in Westeros who tells Aemond Targaryen the truth to his face. From her, he can take it. So understand what the Dance of the Dragons actually is. Thousands dead, every great house split, a dynasty ending, all of it downstream of one teenager who could not say 4 words out loud. I lost control. I'm sorry. So he told the world he was a killer to hide an accident. Hold that thought, because he's about to do the exact opposite, and it's the single most misread act of the entire war. YouTube gives you 3 hypes a week. 3. Most people never spend 1. They expire quietly, like a dragon nobody ever climbs. Aemond understood what most people don't. The weapon only counts if you go and take it. If what I just showed you about that scream doesn't exist anywhere else on this platform, go and claim yours here. That's how a small channel gets past the big gates. Here's the reading almost the entire audience has backwards. Aegon is the weak brother, the drunk, the accident on the throne. Aemond is the strong one, the brother who should have been king. Rook's Rest is the proof. It's the disproof. Because at Rook's Rest, Aegon is losing. Meleys has Sunfire by the neck, the king is barely hanging on, and his younger brother arrives on the largest dragon in the world with a clean shot. And Aemond gives the order with his own brother directly in the line of fire. 1 word. Vhagar's flames hit Aegon and Sunfire head-on, and the king comes down out of the sky with his armor melting into him. People debated whether it was an accident of battle. You and Mitchell settled it in an interview. It was intentional. Now hold the 2 side by side because this is the whole video. Storm's End, he didn't mean it and took the credit. Rook's Rest, he absolutely meant it and denied it to everyone. Opposite lies, same lie. Both exist to protect one thing, the version of Aemond who is always in control and never, ever afraid. And now the question nobody asks. Why then? If this is about the throne, Aemond has had 100 cleaner chances. Aegon is a drunk who wanders the city. Aemond rides the largest dragon alive. If cold ambition were the engine, Aegon dies quietly in Season 1, and nobody writes a song about it. It happens after the brothel. After Aegon walked into the one room where the armor was off, saw his brother curled up like a child, and told everyone. He didn't burn his brother for a crown, he burned him for a laugh. And then there's that scene. Aemond leans over his ruined brother, asks how much he remembers of the battle, and presses the king's marble into burned flesh. Mitchell compared playing it to Misery, a spider over something caught in the web. But watch it knowing what we know. That isn't a predator enjoying himself. That's a man checking whether the witness saw anything. He's terrified. And then the detail that gives him away completely. He wins. Aegon is destroyed, the throne is functionally empty, the largest dragon in the world answers to him. And he does not take the crown. He takes Prince Regent. Every ambitious man in this story who gets that close takes the title. Aemond takes the power and leaves the name on the table, because underneath it all, the boy who was told his pain didn't count still doesn't believe he's allowed to be the thing itself. He'll rule, he just can't let himself be crowned. And his mother sees straight through him again. When he burns Sharp Point, a town that did nothing to anyone, she asks him one question.
That moved you to burn the town of Sharppoint. Peril or basest fury at your own humiliation.
Humiliation. Not strategy, not peril, not war. She names the engine out loud, and it's the same engine it's been since the pig. Then she turns from him completely. The last relationship holding him together, gone. So when he flies north to Harrenhal, he arrives as the loneliest man in Westeros. And there's somebody waiting there who can smell exactly that. Harrenhal. A cursed ruin built from burnt heart trees, a place the story has already shown us breaking the minds of men who sleep in it. And in it, Alys Rivers, a woman who claims to read what's coming in fire and water. Daemon met her too. Daemon fought her the whole way. Argued, resisted, called it drivel. Aemond doesn't resist for a second. Why would he? He spent 20 years starving for a woman who'll look at him and tell him what he is. Alys does that professionally. In Fire and Blood, what follows is the strangest stretch of his life. He takes her for himself. He abandons Criston Cole's army in hostile country. He burns the Riverlands alone, town after town, while King's Landing sits undefended behind him and slips away from the Greens entirely. Historians in that world argue about whether he was bewitched. You don't need a spell. A man who has never once been comforted, being comforted at last, will follow that voice off any cliff and call it strategy the whole way down. And his sister already told him how it ends. The gentlest person in that family, the one nobody listens to, the one who called the eye before he ever lost it.
Aegon will be king again. He's yet to see victory. He sits on a wooden throne. And you'll be dead. You were swallowed up in the god's eye, and you are never seen again.
Listen to the tense she uses. Not you will be swallowed up. You are. Present tense. She isn't predicting it. She's watching it. And he goes anyway. Of course he does. The alternative is sitting in King's Landing being nobody's favorite son. And above that lake, Daemon Targaryen unbuckles his saddle chains, steps off his own dragon in midair, lands on Vhagar's back behind his nephew, and drives Darksister down through Aemond's empty eye socket. Through the hole. The exact hole. The one wound he spent his entire life making sure nobody could look at. The armor never healed it. It just made sure nobody could reach it, including the people who might have helped. And that's why the Daemon comparison matters, because everyone treats those two as the same character. They're built from opposite materials. Daemon runs on a superiority complex. He believes he deserves more than he's been given, and burns the world down asking why nobody agrees. Aemond is the inverse. He never believed he deserved anything, so he built something enormous, stood behind it, and hoped nobody checked. And look at how they end. Daemon finally stops. He bends the knee, accepts he isn't the center of the story, and something in him goes quiet. Aemond never gets that. He dies still performing, still needing the room to be afraid of him, still 9 years old in a hall where nobody asked if he was all right. And here's why this character has held on to so many people, long past the point where he stopped being sympathetic. Because everybody builds one. Maybe not a dragon, but the joke you make first so nobody else can. The competence you wear so nobody checks how you're doing. The version of yourself you invented in a room where honesty wasn't safe, and kept wearing long after you left that room. His tragedy isn't that he was cruel. It's that he was 9 years old once, the armor worked, and nobody ever gave him a reason to take it off. Martin's favorite line, borrowed from Faulkner, is that the only thing worth writing about is the human heart in conflict with itself. Aemond is what happens when that conflict gets settled early, badly, by a frightened child, and then defended by a man with a dragon. But here's what I want to know from you. If Viserys had knelt down that night and asked his son one question about his face instead of about the rumor, does the Dance of the Dragons still happen? Or was that entire war one honest moment away from never existing? Tell me in the comments. I don't think there's a clean answer. This is the part where most channels beg you to subscribe. I'm not doing that. But if this video turned Aemond from a villain you enjoyed into a boy you understand, without letting him off the hook for a single body, then you already think the way this channel thinks. We're building an empire of people who refuse to accept the version they were given. And if you're still here, you're already one of us. You know what to do. One last thing. Aemond took his dragon, climbed up in the dark and seized the biggest thing on the field, because nothing in his life was ever going to be offered to him. But Sea Smoke? Nobody took Sea Smoke. Sea Smoke went hunting down a beach and chose a shipwright's bastard. And the reason why is buried in a real-world name on House Velaryon's own banner, hiding in plain sight since episode 1. That video is right here, and once you watch it, you'll never see a dragon claiming a rider the same way again. See you there. Until then, stay cult.